Jambo DirtFish friends, habari gani, and welcome to our studio here at M Sport in the northwest of England. And well, last night we brought you Malcolm Wilson as our expert pundit, I suppose, and this evening, well, we are very honoured to be joined by the M Sport team principal, Richard Millener. Richard, well, first of all, thank you for having us this weekend.
Pleasure. Always nice to see you.
Have we behaved ourselves? Have we been all right?
Very much so.
There's still a day to go.
There's still a day to go. The trouble he can get up to in a day is phenomenal. Folks, it has been yet again a really fascinating day in Kenya for the sixth round of this year's FIA World Rally Championship. Maybe not quite the drama that we saw yesterday, but Richard, it was a different sort of day. It really was. And do you think maybe there were learnings from yesterday that the teams and the drivers took in today, and that is why we saw a day that was maybe a little less atrocious than yesterday?
I think it was probably a combination. I think the gaps were bigger, so these guys are able to try and drive and maintain gaps and know roughly what pace they need to be at. But also think there was a different style of stages today. It looked a lot more open, so there was a bit more room for any kind of error or accidents, whereas yesterday, so in the forest and in the trees, was so much more difficult. But then again, there were sections that were really tricky, and that final stage was an absolute. It was incredible to watch, and I certainly wouldn't have liked to have had what some of the drivers had. And it did seem to develop over the course of the stage, with some getting better conditions than others.
You know what, that rainstorm that came down at the end there, really, we wanted a bit of rain, didn't we? And it's a bit selfish of us to want a bit of rain, because there was plenty in this rally as it was. But I think it's that kind of nostalgic sort of look back to the Safari Rally, and we remember the days of the water crossings and the mud. But your drivers didn't really want to see it. It was a difficult thing to cope with. We've seen the mindset from European rallies to this rough, really, really basic sort of surface, if you like, basic roads. To throw the rain in, it asked a lot of them.
It did, but I think that's what everyone loves about rally. That's what you want, and it's like when you watch any kind of motor racing, Formula One. You want rain, you want to see excitement, you want to see the drivers really showing what they're capable of. And I think even though we only had what's probably considered quite a small amount of rain in Kenya from a rain cloud, what we could see on the TV, it still produced some real drama. And it looked like Gus got quite heavily affected, and we saw him go off on a couple of corners. Taka, obviously quite lucky to get back by looks of things with that suspension at the end where he'd been off somewhere. Seb seemed to have a bad time. Tanak, he had a really bad time.
We'll come to Tanak in a second.
And Neville had a bad time, but actually seemed to get better at the end. So, I think it was, if I always take myself away from the sport when something like that's going on and just think of it as a spectator, which is what I used to be, and it's the best thing you could ask for. In the boardroom there, the three of us and Malcolm were sat there, and we were all kind of getting a bit giddy, a bit excited about it, because you don't really care what's going to happen in terms of your drivers. Well, you do care, but you're just really excited to see what's going to happen, because the sport's great when it gets like that.
But I think it's worth remembering as well, just the impact that the rain can have on this surface. It becomes what they call black cotton. It's this volcanic dust that is like talcum powder. I said to you on the way up,
you talked about black cotton.
We were going to go to Sainsbury's in Cockermouth. This is a great experiment.
It would have been white cotton though.
It would have been white cotton. We were going to get some talcum powder, sprinkle it in, and show just this is, because that's exactly what it's like. It really is. Yeah. And then pour some water on it, and we maybe should do that.
Maybe we'll do that tomorrow.
Maybe we'll do that tomorrow.
Let's talk though about the situation with the rally, because that rain came in the final stage. It didn't affect things too much. Thierry Neuville started this morning, and we had concerns, certainly David and I, particularly after the issues that we witnessed yesterday evening between stage 6 and 7, I think it was. It looked as if he might have had an issue with the engine, but my goodness, his performance today, really his performance all week, Neuville, Richard, has been impressive.
Yeah, I think when I was watching the second stage today, when the guys a lot of them were obviously having to slow down for some animals and things, you could see that frustrated Thierry. And I think he knew that Oit at the time was pushing and Seb were pushing, and both giving him no time whatever. So I can understand his frustration for something outside of his control. And again, you see it during the rain. He didn't know what was going on ahead of him. He was expecting he got the worst position. But you've got to hand it to him. He's one of the best drivers there. He's very consistent. He always finishes rallies, and generally is always there. And he has a very good never give up attitude, and whatever's going against him at the time, he does push on every single stage, and respect to him where he is tonight, and he's got a very good opportunity to win this first rally. And I think anyone who wins this rally the first time since WRC goes back, it will be a really special one to win.
Yeah, it is one of those rallies where you really can't declare the winner until the final stage, because anything can happen. But I agree with you, he's in the best position. Taka-san, David, I perhaps didn't give him the credit yesterday evening that he deserved. But again, a really fine day from Taka-san. He gets better and better rally by rally. Again, a driver who's in a firm podium place now, and a lot to drive for tomorrow, a lot to lose. But Taka-san is different product these days.
Totally.
You'd put your money on him finishing and getting that podium. Yeah, and obviously Sebastian Ogier had that problem really early on yesterday. Lost 2 minutes, and you're thinking, where can he get up to? And Richard, you've worked with Seb. You've had some great times with Seb. You know just how much of a professional he is. And it does look as if he'll finish at least in second place tomorrow. Astonishing when you think of the early problems he had.
But he's a pro at dealing with those early problems, and he drove through that next stage, ensuring that the car got back, knowing full well anything could happen in a rally, which is what he's done the last 2 or 3 rallies, and he's come back out on top, and he shows his class when he needs to. And I think he was gaining on Thierry throughout the day as well. Okay, not by much, but they were both gaining him a night. And if anyone can stay cool under the pressure and not worry too much, it's him. And like you say, he will probably move ahead of Taka, but at the same time, Taka's actually keeping up pace with him in some places, and I think it gives Toyota a question next year as to whether they bring Taka into the main team, because his performances have been incredible.
Absolutely,
really.
You want a driver in that third car who gives you consistency, who you can rely on. 3 6th places, a 5th and a 4th place this year.
2 fourths.
2 fourths, sorry, 2 fourths, and it looks like he's going to get at least fingers crossed, the third place tomorrow. That's remarkable consistency, and that is exactly what a team manager is looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing it earlier. What more could you ask for if you want a consistent finisher? And he's probably the best Japanese driver in WRC that's been there before. And fair play to him, respect to him, and underlying thing is he's such a nice guy.
Yes, no, he's fabulous with it.
So would you next year you would go with Elvin, Calais, and Taka as your 3?
Well, I wouldn't be worrying about trying to find other people if nothing came along. I think that would be a very strong thing.
Here's what I think will happen. I think it'll, just purely speculation obviously, I think clearly it will be Elvin and Calais. I think Taka will have a whole season, but I think he'll do half the season as Seb's stand-in, if you like.
But then what, if they do bring Lappy back, which we're hearing is quite possible, what do you do then? Would you put Lappy in the third car, or do you give Taka as much of the season?
I wouldn't. He's been out for a year. I would put Taka in there. Moving on to Oyt Tanak, because Oyt Tanak clearly wasn't happy. Now, he had a nightmare in that final stage in the rain. Not just the surface that obviously compromised him. They had a problem when we think the windscreen wiper and the blower on the windscreen. And I haven't seen this happening very often. He stopped in the stage. Both driver and co-driver undid their belts. They probably only had 2 or 3 seconds cleaning the windscreen, but in total, it was a 20-second stop. And at the end of the stage, boy, he wasn't happy.
No, so I mean, the heated windscreens on those cars generally are split into sections, and on the Hyundai, it's obviously a left and a right. But Martin's side obviously was working, and Oyt's wasn't, which is the worst way you could have it. If it was the other way around, you could probably have got through, albeit a little bit slower. But it was hard to see from the onboards because the onboard camera is on the side that was working. On his side, it would have been completely impossible to see anything. So to see someone stop, honestly, I thought he'd stopped because he had a technical problem, or maybe rain or water had got something, an electrical problem. And then when you realise what was going on, it's heartbreaking to see. And we've all had it with heated windscreens and failures, unfortunately, and it just struck them at exactly the wrong time. And not only did he have the rain, he had that as well. So yeah, he was unhappy, and I can fully appreciate that. And it was difficult.
But just to say, I mean, there was this question. What did he got? Sort of 10k more than that to go. Yeah. So 6, 7, 8 miles to go. Some people were saying, is it the right thing to do? Would he have lost more time? He would know. Who would know?
It would be impossible. It would be completely impossible to see.
But it's not just that. The jeopardy involved in taking those risks with it. It's not as if if you go off and there's a bit of a runoff, you're fine. There were rocks everywhere. Yeah. There were rocks everywhere.
It would have been like driving at night with your lights off.
Absolutely.
It would have been impossible.
Your boys, Rich, what a day they've had again. massively impressed with both of your drivers this week. They've both been consistent, they've shown pace, they've shown discipline, they've shown intelligence. They've done, I imagine, and you'll tell me whether this is correct or not, exactly what you wanted them to do.
I mean, I think if you look at the overall results and the time off the lead it doesn't really paint the true picture of what we've kind of been doing this weekend. Adrian was very clear at the start that he only wanted to push on the stages where the damage to the car was less of a risk, because Malcolm told him before we went, it's going to be on the calendar next year. If he's in the championship next year, it's vital that he gets all experience of all the stages, which is what he's doing. And at the same time, batting in a couple of second and third fastest along the way, which is great to see.
Reminding everyone just how much talent he's got.
Yeah, and Gus, ultimately the same. He wants to prove that he can get to the end of rallies, and he wants to prove that he can consistently fight for that place. And he's done a great job, and I think it's another improvement, another step on. And they've made a lot of big changes again in the notes. His notes are very descriptive of the conditions as opposed to the corners, which he's getting used to. But it's clearly working still, because he can still do the same speed and do well. But when I spoke to Chris Patterson last night, I'm not sure his body is coping. That's the only thing I would say.
It looks incredibly tough on everyone out there. Folks, that is our top 6. What I'm going to quickly do is give you our top 6 at the end of the Saturday. Day 3, I think we're calling it. What are you calling it in your control centre?
Yeah, we'll call it day 3.
Day 3, well, if Rich calls it day 3, it's good enough for us. Here we go. Our top 6 at the end of day 3. Thierry Neuville leads the way. Taka-san in second, 57.4 seconds behind. Sébastien Ogier up to third, 1 minute 15.5 off the lead. Oyt Tanak, the man who lost out in the rain on the final stage of the day, is a further 1 minute and 5 seconds behind Sébastien Ogier. Then comes Gus Greensmith, just 18 seconds behind Oyt Tanak. Is that one that perhaps we should be watching tomorrow? And Adrian Formeau, 12 seconds behind Gus Greensmith. So that is our top 6. David, do you have a point you want to make?
No, I've got a question for Rich.
Oh, go on.
We were sat in there watching that last stage as the weather evolved and the rain was coming. How frustrating is it to be sitting here in Dovenby, beautiful surroundings, and not out there? I mean, how much of an impact can you have? How often are you talking to the drivers, and what can you do to affect the way the rally's running?
In that occasion, it probably, if I was there, it wouldn't have been much of a difference. The guys were going into the stage. They knew the weather was coming. They knew they had the wrong tyres and the wrong setup for what was coming, so they got to prep for it. But I sent a couple of WhatsApp messages to Gus and to Adrian beforehand, just explaining that it's coming. And Gus was asking the question about, is it what's the latest, what's happening? And we just said, you just don't worry about it. You're just going to have to deal with what you're given, unfortunately, at this time. And okay, I can, working here this weekend, being forced to work here this weekend as opposed to Kenya has shown that it is possible, but it's not the same as being there. Even if it's in the evening when you go to see them and have a bit of a debrief and a chat, I've spoke to them on the phone every night, but it's not quite the same, and you don't get to find out and hear everything, and you don't see everything that's going on. So I really hope that I can go to all the rest of the events this year, which is the plan, and I can't wait to actually go to this rally next year.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we've been concentrating on our WRC drivers, but there's some fantastic local drivers involved in this event, and our man on the ground, Jeff Mays, is there to keep us up to date. Let's hear from Jeff.
Good afternoon, Colin. It's time for the end of day 2 briefing, as I promised earlier. As you can see, slightly different weather conditions now. About half an hour ago, it started raining here. I'm on Sleeping Warrior 2. Anyway, the Kenyans are loving it. They're used to this kind of weather. It's not quite the same wet, black cotton swirl that we would have expected from classic safaris many years ago. Anyway, Onker is still in front. Second overall, somewhere here. There he is. I'm not that good at this. That's Karan Patel, 9th overall. This is, like with many other Kenyans, this is his WRC debut in an R5 car. Unlike the rest, he has done WRC events in the past. He did the Junior World Championship a couple of years ago. 9th overall. Flash Tundo was on a charge this morning. He got a puncture. He's dropped back. He's 10th. He's still fighting. Whenever he gets a clean run, he is the quickest Kenyan. Young Jeremy Wahome, you see I got it right that time, is 13th overall in his cute little R3. He's absolutely flying and mixing it with the best of the Evos. 14th overall is Jasmeet Chana in an Evo 10. The rest of the top 20 is all filled out by the Kenyans. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you now and head off home because the traffic is building. The spectators are loving it. We've had an absolute mixture of everything today. About 20 minutes ago, we had about 300 zebra come in here. Anyway, guys, it's back to you.
Always good to get our updates from Jeff and Mays. Richard, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're here for another day, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we'll see you at 5:25 in the morning.
We will. It'll be an early start tomorrow morning, folks. One more day to go. Still 5 stages to go. It's going to be a fascinating final day. Asante, my friends in Africa. We'll see you tomorrow morning.